Today we dive into a monster opening, the Halash Gambit. White boldly sacrifices a pawn right from the start, aiming for rapid development, open lines, and immediate attacking chances. It's risky, it's sharp, and if your opponent isn't prepared, it can turn into total chaos on the board. I decided to analyze this position more carefully, and it turns out that white actually has a pawn majority on the king side, which can always be pushed forward to create attacking chances. For example, when the black knight develops, white gains many interesting opportunities to attack. Let me show you the main line. In most cases, your opponent sees that the pawn is under attack and they will try to defend it with their knight. Then, you add one more attacker with your own knight, and they bring in an additional defender with their bishop. After this sequence, you essentially stop worrying about that pawn and continue developing your pieces naturally. Although black has an extra pawn, there is a hidden drawback. That pawn actually blocks their own bishop. As a result, the bishop becomes very passive, almost like a tall, useless pole standing in place. Moreover, if we continue along this line and both sides simply develop their pieces casually, it already becomes a serious mistake for black, even though it may not look like it at first glance. The reason is that it allows white to play the pawn to e5, which is one of the key attacking ideas. With these two pawns pushing forward, the black knight is forced to move, and as it does, white gains the opportunity to unleash the famous Greek gift sacrifice. Bishop captures on h7. This immediately wins the game, because the black king is forced to recapture. After that, white plays knight to g5, creating a devastating attack. Perhaps you already know this tactical idea, but if not, let me quickly explain. White delivers a check to the king, forcing it to move. If the king retreats back, then white simply brings the queen out, threatening queen to h7 checkmate. The only possible attempt for black is to try to escape with the king. However, there is a forced sequence that is important to remember because it appears in many different openings whenever you use the Greek gift sacrifice. Instead of retreating, white captures the pawn on f7, which is no longer defended by the rook, and the attack continues with full force. So, you continue with queen captures, and then you bring the queen back, keeping the pressure on the black king by delivering checks move after move until the checkmate is completed. I will show you some sidelines in just a moment, explaining what to do if your opponent deviates from the main line. However, I also want to highlight another main line, which is extremely exciting, because I discovered a move here that is truly brilliant. Now in this variation, black continues with standard developing moves. At some point, they may realize that instead of simply playing bishop to c5 to defend, they can also play bishop to b4, delivering check to your king. At first glance, this move looks very tempting for black. In response, you simply play pawn to c3, blocking the check. After the exchange that follows, the great thing is that it helps you develop your knight. In most cases, your opponent will capture here, because if they do not, then at some point in the future, you will likely jump with your knight to d5 yourself, counterattacking their bishop and seizing the initiative. So, black usually captures there, because the bishop has nothing better to do. At this point, what are their options? They generally do not want to bring the knight out immediately, since white can always push the pawn to e5 and chase it back. That is why black first plays pawn to d6. In response, white develops naturally with bishop to d3. The game continues with knight to f6 and then white castles. Now, as we already know, if black carelessly castles at this moment, white can immediately strike with pawn to e5. Once the knight is forced to move, white can unleash the powerful Greek gift sacrifice. Bishop captures on h7. This is a very common attacking theme that appears across many of these lines. So, let us take a step back. Instead of castling, black often tries bishop to g4, aiming to pin your knight and hoping this will slow down your attack or prevent you from jumping forward. However, their king is still stuck in the center of the board, and white's plan remains the same: to push the pawn to e5, open up the lines, and launch a direct attack against the king. Of course, this is not a completely forced sequence, but I want to show you something truly beautiful here. At this point, we attack the black knight. Now what can black do? They can either retreat with the knight, or they may try to capture something, taking advantage of the pin. In both cases, however, they are in serious trouble. Let us imagine they retreat. In that case, there is a brilliant line where white plays bishop to c4, attacking the knight twice. The stunning idea is that if the knight moves anywhere, whether to this square or another, you immediately sacrifice the bishop on f7. This is another common tactical pattern that forces the black king to step out. After that, you continue with knight to g5, which delivers check not only from the knight, but also a discovered check from the rook. The black king is forced to move, and now comes the real magic. Here I would give you 5 attempts to guess the correct move for white. Pause the video and think carefully. It is incredibly beautiful, but very difficult to spot. The most natural move for white would be queen captures on g4, simply winning the bishop. After all, the black king is completely exposed and white has a dominant position. However, that move is not a forced win, because the game still continues. Instead, there is a move that wins instantly, and it is so unexpected that it feels like a god-level idea. The best move in this position is not queen captures on g4, not queen to b3, and not any other standard attacking move. It is rook to f8. This is a complete shocker. At first glance, it looks like nonsense. Your queen is under attack, yet you do not capture anything. You simply give up your rook, apparently for no reason. But this quiet sacrifice is the winning move, and it completely stuns the opponent. The next variations are also quite amusing. For example, if black responds with queen captures on f8, you still do not recapture. Instead, you play queen to b3 with check. At first, it seems that black has plenty of defensive resources. Perhaps the knight can block, the bishop can block, or even the queen can step in. But none of these defenses truly work, because white simply captures each blocking piece one by one. All black is really doing is delaying the inevitable. In the end, it still leads to checkmate, and despite all of black's pieces standing around the king, they are helpless. With just 2 white pieces actively attacking, black is already completely defenseless. Now let us take it back and consider another possibility. What if black tries to capture the rook with the king? In that case, white still finds a beautiful idea. The winning blow is subtle, queen to f1. The point is that white has vacated this square earlier, and now the queen slides into position on an open file. Wherever the black king goes, whether to g8 or to e7, it no longer matters. The move queen to f7 then delivers a checkmate. Finally, there is another tricky attempt black might try. Suppose they play knight captures on c5, attempting to take advantage of the pin. Here, white uses a very rare tactical pattern known as a counterpin. You move your piece away from the pin, and at the same time you put the black knight under a pin of its own. In other words, while black tried to pin your knight, you turn the tables and pin their knight instead. The result is that black loses immediately, and white's attack remains unstoppable. White will eventually capture the black knight, either with the white queen giving check or with the white knight. Black may try to trade something, but after white knight captures on e5, white attacks both the black queen and the black bishop while preparing discovered checks. For instance, if white knight captures on g4 with check and black tries to recover, white still wins. If the black knight recaptures, black loses the queen. If black captures elsewhere, white continues with white knight to f6 check, followed by white rook captures on e1 check. In the end, white wins an extra bishop and has a completely winning position. And just like that, with precise attacks and brilliant tactics, white wins decisively. Thanks for watching, and keep practicing these sharp ideas. Thanks for watching. If you found this video as helpful for you, then like and subscribe. See you in the next one.